Hello, hello. My name is Nicole Harlot. Welcome to today's episode of Speaking of the Village. I'm here with Dawn Thompson, my lovely co-host, and we are joined today with Kerry Ingram, who's a postpartum doula, a maternal mental health specialist, early childhood educator, and we're so excited to have you here today. I'm a little jealous that you are in Costa Rica as we're talking. So relaxed and just glowing. But tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thanks, Nicole and Dawn. What to share about myself? It's always such a big open question, but to just couch it into our conversation here at the Villager, I think how I want to just name myself or, introduce is I'm a village tender. And I feel like I have been since I was a young girl, just as a Girl Scout and just a social butterfly and kind of a natural do-gooder. And that's kind of a similar thread that's carried me through my whole life and into my professional world as a teacher, a parent, a community organizer, and facilitating parent-baby groups for the last 13 years.
Nice. I mean, I think, our whole thing is about the village, right? It's the whole purpose of our talk. And, I think that people are often blindsided by the postpartum experience. I think it's kind of like one of those things I say, someone will tell you that you're going to love your kid more than anything else you've ever loved in your life. And people can tell you that over and over and over again, but you don't necessarily understand it until you experience it firsthand. And I think postpartum is a similar thing. Like, it's not something that someone can help you understand just how hard it is, because it's likely the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. And there's nothing that can prepare you for it. So the fact that we're still having this conversation about how important community is, why is that? Why is that? Why do we think that community is so important postpartum?
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, 1,000,000%. And it was even something who, so many women that I know that have been early childhood educators, birth workers, before having their own children, including myself, and then completely blindsided and brain explosion of how much support is really needed and that it truly does take a village. And, I feel like the work that I do is coming into this tending of the village, this village tending from the opposite side for the same result. And really, I try to teach skills to the other people, the birth workers, the aunties, the best friends, the family members, so that that's not one more thing that newborn parents have to organize and do themselves. So that's kind of the work that I do. And I really do feel like there is this lost art of village tending. And it really is what it means to be human, and that we really can't exist outside community. And I feel like I'm a Gen Xer, just had my 50th birthday last week. And I really feel like we used to know how to do this. And maybe this is just me being nostalgic, but I do feel like we just used to know how to tend to our communities a little bit more, how to take care of each other, how to notice, who has a new baby down the street, who is, now the elderly neighbor that has a walker that might need help raking leaves and shoveling, and how to circulate our skills and our energy like ecosystems do in nature. We can take our cues from nature, and that it is a skill set. And that's kind of the work that I do, is helping people skill up and show up for newborn families, and of course, families at any season in life.
I think, like you said, I think this time in the world, it's the most connected we've ever been. And in the same breath, the most disconnected we've ever been. So I think globally, right? It's amazing that I can talk with you, Dawn, who's in California every single week, and with you, Kerry, who normally is in California, and now you're joining me on the East Coast in Costa Rica. It's connection in such a different way, but we've lost the local community here down the road, like that neighborhood. I'm a millennial, 35, so a little bit different of a generation, but I still remember, that everyone on the block, like, connection that we had when I was younger. And like, we would go play with kids on the street, and, their moms would bring over stuff for, our house, and then we would bring them stuff. And, there was still that like neighborhood, village, community vibe that now as an adult, I feel like, it took me a while to meet my neighbors, and like, I don't know so much going on in their lives. My immediate neighbors, like, hey, by the way, I need, can you help me with this? Or I'm going away for a week, just watch my house, kind of thing. Like, it's there, but it's still all through like technology that we're talking. We're not like walking over and like ringing the door, like, hey, neighbor.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's a huge, I think a lot of people are like, no, we're not disconnected. Like, we're always talking to other people, but it's like not the wrong, because I don't want to say right and wrong, but it's just such a different type of connection that we're in, that those fundamental communities in times where they're really needed, like a new mom, or like you said, in the elderly and things like that, that's where the miss is. So
sure.
I loved what you said, though, that like you help others, like, so you help birth workers. So like, how can birth workers include this community care in their services, rather than just being there for labor, being there for birth, and then, obviously I know there's some postpartum visits in those packages typically, but like, how can that care put a beautiful thread through all the way through postpartum? How do you help people?
Yeah, great question. So have you ever had that feeling, and maybe somebody listening is about to just like, it's going to hit them, that feeling when, and I know this feeling because it's awful, when you've been working with a family, you've been in that like intimate, like baby bubble, you've been with them maybe through the birthing process, through preparing for birthing, maybe you're there a little bit afterwards, a couple of visits, and then that day comes where like the contract is up, the agreement is up, and you're leaving and you're feeling like, what the F am I doing? Like, this parent needs more, and I'm leaving now because of whatever reason. There's a lot of like conditioned reasons that they might think like, well, I should be able to figure this out by now. Or there's like maybe a financial piece because we don't have this baked into our healthcare system. Maybe, there's so many reasons. And then you, as that birth worker, postpartum caregiver, you leave and you're like, man, there needs to be more. There needs to be more here. Well, this, the work that I've been doing with my Village Tenders work and my Village Tender course, it's basically learning how to create parent and baby groups that are local in neighborhoods for new parents to get together once a week and bring in outside experts. For example, there's mental health specialists, there's pelvic floor specialists, lactation consultants. We have like movement, recovery exercises, all sorts of things. We bring people in, but we also talk, we see each other. And it's like that is the jam, is when the moms can hear from each other and see each other. Because when we're in isolation, we feel like everything that we're experiencing is we're the exception. I'm the only one who is still peeing their pants. I'm the only one who isn't sleeping. I'm the only one who doesn't want to be touched by my partner. And when we can get in a group together with other parents in the same, early months, that's when we can like normalize, like, we don't have to hide in the shadows. It's a pretty collective experience here. And here's how, as a facilitator, we can offer resources and support, and also just like being visible and acknowledgement and being witnessed in that struggle.
Yeah.
So for me, I've developed this curriculum 12 years ago, and I've shared it all over the world for people to create parent baby groups. Don't reinvent the wheel. I've already figured it out. It works. It's great. And it's just a way to be, as a birth worker, it's a way to offer more support. It's a way to continue your services. It's a way to like have a more consistent income. It's a way to be networked with those specialists that are going to refer you. And it's a way to create more value for what we do as birth workers and caregivers.
Yeah. I think the
love
thing
that.
I want to make sure we get back to is the fact that, you know, the majority of the people that are listening to us are pregnant and postpartum families. So ideally, I want to know, I want people to walk away from an episode with as much ideas and thoughts, or at least send them on a journey of learning. And so what do you feel like are the biggest takeaways from what you teach?
The biggest takeaways are like something that I have been telling parents for over 20 years is parents don't need fixing. They just need more support.
Yes.
That's like every sentence. So often we feel as parents, there is a feeling, well, if you are expecting, we'll just start there. If you're expecting, you have a community that wants to help. And the community it's not just about support. It's also about community joy. You know, what Nicole had said, we're so connected, yet so disconnected. And the disconnect feeling is, something Brene Brown talks about so much, is this like disconnection from belonging, this sense of belonging. And back to my own story, like living in a very high density populated area in New York, I felt like I belonged to that neighborhood. Everyone was watching out for each other. I knew like who was cooking what on what nights, who, going there for snacks, and not just that one friend that I had, but their whole family. I felt like I belonged. And I belonged to the seasons, and I belonged to the apple trees and the maple syrup that ran, in March. And there was a different sense there. And so when we can invite in our community, it really gives us a sense of belonging, not just as a receiver, but also as a giver. And when we can be organized, and I do have like a great free resource for parents, it's called the Circles of Support workbook. And it is how to organize your community to support you so that they can, give what makes them happy. Some of my friends love to cook. Some of my friends love to walk dogs. Some of my friends love to help me in my garden, so that people can find what they like to do, or a neighbor that can just carpool your kid because they're already bringing their kid, or stop by the grocery store and drop something off. There's so much that's just right at our fingertips. We don't have to think that having postpartum support is just for the, wealthy, well-resourced. Like community is an asset.
And I think the thing that I want to point out that you're talking about, though, is that people want to help. They get, like in most cases, people are not even going to remotely feel for a second put out when you ask. They want to help. They want to be part of it. I mean, it's our natural state of being. And if you have someone in your life who does seem put out, then that's probably not your person to be relying on. But most cases people want to. The only thing that I feel like we need to address here that has come up to me now a couple times is like families are getting mixed messages right now about getting support versus not allowing their baby to be around a bunch of people because of RSV and colds and blah, blah, blah. Don't let anyone over to your house. Don't let anyone kiss your baby. Don't, what I mean? Like there's also this message. And I'm like, God, it's must be so hard for parents to navigate that right now, because now they're like, nope, nobody's coming over, blah, blah, blah.
I have a good story for that, just because I had a baby 2 weeks after. It wasn't even called COVID when it happened. Like it was still the coronavirus, scare going on. And that was a really crazy time to like be pregnant at the end of your pregnancy and postpartum. And I will say, because I had so much support during that postpartum specifically, because I had terrible OCD and anxiety after my first, this was my second kid. And, you know, everyone knew like we were not having a repeat of what happened with my first. So, you know, I totally get the RSV, and like, especially with my last born, like I wouldn't let anyone else hold the baby for 2+ weeks because I wanted just that bonding and that breastfeeding, but it didn't mean that I wasn't supported. The difference is, and Dawn, you know, you can definitely let me know if I'm on the right track here, but in my opinion, the message of don't kiss my baby, stay away, all the things, is because in the society, everyone wants to come and hold the baby and relish on the baby and like focus on that instead of supporting the mom. So the community coming over to like wash dishes and do laundry and cook a meal or bring a nourishing meal, or like you said, walk the dog or do anything around the house and support the family, support the unit, doesn't, quite frankly, need to even go near the baby. That's not what everyone wants to hear, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna have a freaking opinion about it.
And I can understand. Yeah. Sorry.
You know, as a new mom, you just need to hold that boundary and say, listen, the baby's gonna be a cute little mushy baby in a couple weeks after this time, but right now they need to be on me. They need to, you know, hopefully be getting milk so that they get antibodies and they can, you know, all the immune stuff during the crazy RSV seasons and things like that. But it's not that you coming through the door is gonna have, you know, gonna make this huge impact. Like, you can still come through and help, but I think it's the priority that's got to shift, right?
Yeah.
The priority of you can come over, but you're not holding the baby. That's a big whoa for a lot of
Right.
people.
Yeah, this is so what I have in my circles of support are actually 3 circles. There's intimate and non-intimate. And really what I try to do is map out before the baby even comes, but of course if you have a baby now, you can still do this. Map out who are the people in your inner circle that are your like ride or die. These are the people that you would bring in, you know, you're very trusted. You can be breastfeeding or, you know, whatever way you're feeding, you can just be totally free and trusted and feel safe and secure. Those are the people in your very intimate, like center circle. Those are the people that can come in, and then in that circle, I have listed all of these things that they can do to support you. And then there's a second circle, right? The second circle is like, okay, these are people that really care about me, but they're not on the like the very inside. So maybe these people can drop off a meal on the front step. Maybe they can carpool my older siblings somewhere. Maybe they can help walk a dog. And then there is another circle. These are like neighbors. You know, maybe I have like a long driveway, like take my garbage cans up on garbage day, or, you know, things like that. So, you know, you have to figure this out, just like who are the people on the inside, and then the map that I have, it's like who does what. Like you wouldn't ask your boss to help your baby latch, but they're a great candidate for sending flowers and a gift card for a local restaurant. You wouldn't expect your friend just to like mail you a card in the mail, your best friend. You'd let them come and do your laundry perhaps because you feel safe. So it's really about who does what, because what we don't want to happen is the dreaded call me if you need anything. Like that is the most like amorphous statement that goes nowhere. So if you're a helper, having a specific, I can do this. And if you are someone who needs help, it is mapping out who does the intimate support and who does the non-intimate support. And then we put the activities kind of in buckets on this worksheet, so you know who to ask and it feels comfortable.
Yeah, and something
I mean,
as simple as, sorry, go ahead, Dawn.
No, I was just going to say, I think that leads to the question of like, how do we as pregnant folks, moms, train our family to then, or our friends, this list of people. How do we train them in the kindest way? Because you don't want to be like a, bridezilla or whatever about it, right? You want to be like, okay, so I have a list of things and this is what I want you to do and you to do and you to do. I mean, obviously you have to be have a little more tact, but how do we do that?
Well, one way that has worked well for the expecting families that I've worked with for 20 years is kind of like inviting people into the conversation. Would you like to be part of my support team when the baby comes? And is there anything that like really lights you up that you could see being like a fun thing and a fun way to be part of our support team? And that question, so many people have had like unexpected acts of service and love. For instance, I had some friends who were musicians and they came outside of my window and played lullabies for like 30 minutes. And it was like, I never, like, who would have ever imagined that? And they suggested that. And I had another friend who said that she would love to like put together my birth story and to just use Telegram and like, as I have time, just record it. And then she typed it all up and put it on this like beautiful graphically designed like storybook. So it's like people, of course there'll be the practical things too. Like I would love to do this, and giving far away people a chance too, because they might like to send gift cards or flowers or money towards a postpartum doula, pelvic floor therapy. I love the Her Village registry. I really recommend that. There's also another one called the Be Kind registry. That's another great one. Just inviting people in and just saying, would you like to be on my support team? When the time comes, I'm going to be doing some more organization, or maybe you want to help me organize my support. But asking people like how they could see themselves supporting you and see what happens.
Right. Now, I mean, I think that's probably the best thing, because I love your approach and asking them what they feel like they would love to do. And then you can dive into the more practical things and say, well, I have a list of things I could really use help with, sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think people expect that, especially if you give them, like, you start with the heart, like you're part of my life and I want you to be by my side through this huge life transition. People feel really included. They feel like they're belonging to something. They're valued. They're seen. They're like, past the velvet rope. And then when it comes to, perhaps the next step would be like organizing things. Maybe if you want to use the circles of support, great. Or however you want to organize, like who belongs in which circle, like the intimate support and non-intimate support, and then making it a little bit more practical.
I have this vision of sending a thing that says, congratulations, you have made it to the transition team.
Yeah, make it fun. Make it
into
funny.
a new era,
Totally.
and you've made it onto the transition team.
Yeah, make it fun.
You've been nominated.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll accept this nomination. I mean, like, you could do something really fun like that, right? Hopefully you'll accept this nomination.
I also want to share, like, one of my friends was so good about it. So, like, obviously if you are pregnant or newly postpartum, you want the support, but most of the time you're also a friend on the other side, that people that are pregnant or support. So like, that's a really good way too. If you offer it to them, then not that like it's tit for tat or they owe you one, but the reciprocality of it, or the reciprocity, I think is the right word, is then, just organic. And she sent me a text, after like, congratulations, whatever. And she's like, I'm going to bring over some soup or bread and bread, because they always like make really good soups, and her husband made like homemade sourdough. So she said, I'm going to bring over soup or bread. Would you like chicken noodle, or I forget which other one. I chose chicken noodle. So like, she gave me options. So I still felt like she wasn't just like pushy about what she was doing. She's like, I want to bring you this meal. What do you like? Kind of thing. Like, she also didn't leave it so open-ended where like I had like to figure it out, and like was easy to say like, no, don't do that. Like she just said, she gave me two options. I picked one, and then, she was here. So I think that's really important for people, because again, like when you're in that like postpartum like fog that we talk about, it's easy to just like write it off. But if you're given this or this option A or B, it's easy to be like, okay, choose, thank you, and just move forward, and then you receive.
Totally.
But yeah.
I'm really glad that you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kerry, I would love to know, I know we just talked about like family and this great resource that you have, but for the moms themselves, obviously doing this once they're newly postpartum is probably super overwhelming, right? So when would you recommend, or is there a certain time that it's optimal to have these conversations, to create this plan? Like, is the third trimester too late? Is the first trimester too early? Like, just in your experience, is there a sweet spot that we can kind of focus on? Because that's another like open-ended thing. It's like, well, I talk about it in my first trimester, there's like months to go, but like I don't also want to like give everyone 2 weeks notice. So again, in your experience, is there a sweet spot?
I think, to be honest, it could be second trimester, third trimester, and honestly, you can do it after the baby has arrived. I have a lot of connections in the foster community, and I was also a foster parent, and I do this with people who have babies and children being delivered to their home, and you can still fill it out. It's not overwhelming. It's actually very simple. It would take maybe 15 minutes, and you can do it at any time. The optimal time, of course, it's best if you can be prepared before baby arrives, but you can receive support anytime you need it. Even if you don't have a newborn, you can just receive support. It's okay. And, something else I want to add in is a thing that stops us sometimes is that feeling of like reciprocity, like, oh, you're doing for me and I will do for you. You are like, as a parent, you are actually building community. Like literally, you're creating community by bringing a human to the earth. And one thing I know for sure is that the first person always that's going to show up for others, it's the moms. It's the moms that are there for school fundraisers. It's the moms that are there to pick up the pieces for budgets being cut. It's the moms that are there for the meal trains. And don't worry, you naturally give back. We just do, because that's how we're wired, to tend and befriend. And you're here to receive. This is a year at least of receiving. Yes. And it can be non-reciprocal support for as long as you need. You will give back. There's no ticking time bomb.
Right. Yeah. You're not keeping a debt. It's not a credit card payment that you have to pay back on schedule with interest.
But it's something that stops a lot of people, And one other thing, like potlucks. If you are hosting a potluck and you are inviting somebody with a baby, like take them off the list to bring anything. Yeah. Really, there's always enough. Just like write that on your invitation.
Yeah. That's good. Those are good, really good basic community support ideas that doesn't take any effort at all.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I think that I hope people really listen to this podcast and just take this away, like really get this of how easy this can be to really get the support that you need and distribute the support. Now, I get that there are people who don't always have huge networks of people, and even some people don't have an intimate thing. Like all they have is their partner in some cases, right?
Yeah.
But there's got to be somebody, your boss, a girlfriend, a neighbor, your next door neighbor in your apartment, like whatever. There's got to be people.
Yeah, there's people. And I think also, like, so me personally, my community, talking about what I said in the beginning, like my community is actually bigger, like beyond my, neighborhood, right? So like I have really close friends, but they're not physically close to me.
Mm.
But again, part of the benefit of the world we live in is like anything can be Amazoned to you. So, I have a friend in New York, and like even if my kids are sick or like, one less thing for me to have to think about or whatever, she'll just be like, I'm sending you this, it'll be on your doorstep tomorrow or whatever the case is. I know that doesn't substitute for, again, like physical support in the home doing things, but like you can still, there's other ways, right? Like a meal train, or there's so many, it's not just about ordering pizza, right? There's so many services now that they can order nourishing meals to be sent to your house. They can hire someone to come clean. They can, again, invest in postpartum doula support. Like there's other ways. So even if you don't have a physically local community, everyone wants to help. And I'm not saying that they're just going to like, pour money into you and do this, but a little bit helps. So that's why these registries, like we were talking about too, are really important. Well, because it's then crowdfunding, community funding, right? So there's always
understanding though too, if you are on the other side of this and you're not the pregnant person, right? And knowing that people have a really hard time asking for help because they're afraid to ask people to spend money. They're afraid to ask people to whatever, take time out of their day. Know that that's true, and that you probably should just offer something, do something, just send it, just do it. We listed great things that people can do. So just do it and don't ask permission, because if you just only say, well, just let me know if you need anything.
No, don't do that. And something else I have, on this worksheet is everything kind of boils down service to time or money. And yes, there's money to donate to postpartum services, to meals, to cleaners, to mom and baby groups. There's also time. And, a wonderful gift that my son received when he was about 4 and I had a foster baby was my sister would have once a week story time with my son. She would go to the library, pick out a book, they'd get on Zoom together, and she would like read to him. She'd start out saying, okay, show and tell time, show me 3 things in your bedroom that you're excited about. And they would have like 30 minutes, once a week. That's a great thing. So I have lots of suggestions of ways that people far away can donate time, because when we think far away, we think, well, it's got to be money, but there's ways to do it with time as well. So there's always ways that we can make a connection. And, one thing I wanted to just like land on is like, making requests actually builds community. It's letting people into your world when you feel maybe not perfect, not polished, when you need something, and still you let people see you. And it's really beautiful and vulnerable and authentic in the human experience, because just like you, moms that are listening, parents that are listening, like you feel so good when you get to help somebody, when you get called in, when somebody needs you. That's where community and relationships thrive, is when we let someone in and that person says, yes, I'm right here.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. I think that's a really good point to, come to close with this. And Kerry, you're going to send us the link to that resource, and we can put it right in the show notes. So you won't have to go searching the internet for it. It's right here, and share it with, like I said, if you're obviously pregnant or postpartum, you have friends that are too. So share it, please. And speaking of the village, Kerry, besides your role in, what you support moms and birth workers with, who would you say is the most valuable or integral part of a woman's village?
I think whoever she feels the most safe, trusted, and secure with. Sometimes that's biological family, sometimes that's family, sometimes that's a healthcare practitioner, a partner. It's like whoever that person is such a precious gift to just be yourself. We just want everyone to be themselves and feel safe and seen.
I love that. And, if you guys have been listening to us, I feel like that answer, or that some version of that answer has been really popular lately, and I'm loving it, because when we first started this, it was really a professional role and let's connect all the dots. But more and more, I love the evolution of, it doesn't have to be professional, and it doesn't have to be your partner, and it doesn't have to be your mom, and it could literally be, like you said, that just that person that makes you feel safe. And it perpetuates the individualized care that we talk about all the time, with every mom and every family and every baby needing their own journey in this space. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and we don't get to be the ones to decide what's best for you.
Right.
And or the person that's going to be most helpful to you. Like, we can make suggestions,
right,
but there's no way to know. You have to check in with yourself. Like, what's the thing that's going to help me the most?
Yeah.
You know, product, whatever it is, whatever it is. So anyways, well, thank you guys so much. This was a great episode, I think. And there'll be lots of information for you to download in the show notes. And we look forward to seeing you again, Kerry.
Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, Nicole. And thank you all the parents out there for just being you.
Thank you.